How's it going, everybody? Blake Scholar of Magic. And what I got for you here is a nice kind of like a view of just a sample hand I just kind of had with Fumulus. And that's the commander we're going over. This is our graveyard over here. I'll kind of get into that. Here is a Ripples of a Death that we got going on. We got a zombie token and a Thopter token. We got Fumulus over here hanging out. We got a gray pack over there. That's nice. We also have Black Market Connections down here. And of course, the Meat Hook Massacre. So that is very nice, isn't it? So how did we get here? That is the question. What is this commander? What is he all about? Well, kind of describe kind of what happened in this kind of sequence. Kind of go over some of the play patterns, how this kind of hand developed, and what do we kind of want to see when we see a card like Fumulus, right? So it'd be kind of cool to kind of explain the commander first and foremost. So here it is. Fumulus, the Infestation. It's a legendary creature, a vampire insect. Flying Death Touch. Whenever a player sacrifices a non-token creature, create a 1/1 black insect creature token with flying. Or I guess the key verbiage there is the non-token aspect, right? But it's whenever a player. So if you have like widespread sacrifice, not just for yourself, but for your opponents, you can kind of really double up on and even triple up on those triggers, which is really nice. Definitely go wide in that sense. Whenever an insect, leech, slug, or worm you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So, you probably could definitely go like a drain style here, like with Exquisite Blood, Veto, kind of those kind of stacking kind of characteristics. At this time, I kind of just took my Sauron the Necromancer deck and just kind of built upon that, and definitely took some components, and just from goldfishing this and kind of looking at it, we'll talk about some cards that really just stand out to me, and the ones that kind of I really like so far. So let's just go over some of the cards, kind of see like how this particular game set up. So in this particular game, we definitely had a nice start. We got off to like a Soul Ring start, which was nice. Like I bet, kind of these Soul Rings, they just stick to me, So basically we had, to start, we had like a Jadar and Ripples like on a turn 2, which is just like really nice sequencing. You kind of get your tokens ready for your, your sacrifice, of course. Jadar kind of has that perpetual, I'm having these decayed zombies, and it just works with the overall function of synergy with black creatures in general. Just, creating tokens that are kind of, you can do without, and they kind of replenish themselves. That's always just a nice feature of this color combination. In addition, this Ripples of Death is just an absolute all-star. And it really kind of rounds out your graveyard deck and really kind of gives you that selection, which is really nice. You're not only putting cards in your graveyard, which is beautiful, then you can also just simply pay 1 and 3 life, and one of those 3 cards that you put into the graveyard, you just put in your hand. So it's really nice selection. It's just a wonderful card, and it sticks to the battlefield. So it's, it's really good with our Nykthoses and such. For instance, in this play pattern specifically, I was able to mill, I believe on the second, the first roll around, and I did actually fetch up a Nykthos from there. And that really kind of unlocked our gameplay from there. So you have like kind of this nice stick here. We were able to get Fumulus off at a pretty reasonable rate, of course. And then I also think maybe perhaps the Ripples also got us into the Grave Pack, which was kind of really stellar. And once we have these really nice cards that add to our devotion, right? Those black mana symbols, and they stick to the battle, the battlefield. So for instance, let's get out Nykthos so we can kind of examine these cards, and then kind of look at the verbiage. But so basically, you really want to pay attention for your devotion from the things that are on the battlefield, such as if it's just sit here right in front of us, right? It's not going to the graveyard or anything. Even Fumulus would count to our devotion. So if we had a Grave Pack and a Fumulus, then we have 4 devotion of black on the battlefield. If we have the Ripples also here, so now we have 5. And for instance, if you have like a Meat Hook Massacre and we add it to this, now we have 7. And now we have 8. And what's really amazing about like a Nykthos, if you have, for instance, all those things on the battlefield at once, then what you can do is simply pay 2 mana and then tap this, And from our devotion, it will see that we have 8 devotion, and we'll simply add 8 swamps to our mana pool from that. And you can see how that is just an excellent rate. You're basically putting this, you're just creating like a Gilded Lotus at that point, and you didn't have to invest any mana into it. It's just the land. It can add colorless. It doesn't even come in tapped. It's just a wonderful land. It's definitely top tier, and it definitely holds that $40 price tag. It's an exceptional card and very good for your mono-colored decks, especially with things that stick to the battlefield. And mono black has to be kind of one of those that are very special, right? They're very, very exclusive in that manner, where they have lots of cards that have a lot of devotion, right? And it's like, well, can you really play this outside of like on a multicolored decks, perhaps? But you can see it's very restrictive. You have to have a lot of black mana to pay it. So this was a very interesting sequence. Of course, the Grave Pack works exceptionally well with Fumulus, because each time one of our creatures dies, for instance, in this sequence, I believe that it kind of made sense to basically meat hook our own Jadar. In doing so, we would have triggered off Grave Pack by the Jadar dying, and then our opponents, if they had creatures, would start having to sacrifice, and then basically we just, if at the very worst, we would if they didn't have any creatures, we probably wouldn't get rid of our Jadar, but at our worst, we would create one of those insect tokens, which is great. This is just the Thopter for now. I still have to get the things, and then of course we had our zombie token in this sequence as well, which was just really nice. So overall, you can kind of see the value. Now, it's kind of amazing like how seamless this deck is. Like, these cards that are just good also just function well with each other, and especially the creation of tokens in general. And now I think once we kind of showed kind of this kind of goldfish, we're just going to kind of get into some of the feature of the deck itself. So I just thought it would be very cool to kind of start off with something like that. These are the cards that were in our graveyard from the Ripples. I believe we had even a Viscera Seer in here, so that's really kind of interesting. So we were kind of definitely just, we actually had a Dark Ritual as well. We were really accelerating in this. There's a beautiful Mire Triton, has that nice zombie synergy and kind of zombie payoffs that we have. There's a Viscera Seer, of course, which is like a free sacrifice outlet, which could also be very exceptional for some of our combos. And then Victimize, which is just very nice as well. So those were the things in our graveyard. If you're not familiar with the card Victimize, this one you just have to sacrifice a single creature. You must target 2 creatures in your graveyard, and they return to the battlefield tapped. Fantastic. Very powerful. Of course, there was the Nykthos. And here is the guy, the Fumulus. It's a wonderful card, and I'm so glad that the deck it came together so well, so easily. And we're just going to kind of go over the cards here and just kind of check it out. And if not, I might just zoom in a little bit here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Awesome. Okay. So what do we got? Well, we will start off with the Priestess of Forgotten Gods. And I'm so sorry. These were in our hand still. We just had this Gaslight just ready to go. So we had Rev in our hand, which is great because you can go pretty wide with this guy, and you're going to get value and you're going to make more treasures, which is really cool. Get that selection. We had a Necropotence, which is pretty nuts as well. Dance of the Dead, just some more like, Ripples of Undeath shenanigans. And a Malika Rebirth, so we had like some insurance too. So we were in a really good position there. I felt pretty happy about that kind of draw that we had in that particular game. So what else has we got going here? I'm going to show you some of the cards that really stick out to me, and hit all forms of Fumulus. Kind of get all those things going at once. So obviously the Priest of Forgotten Gods seems like just like a beautiful card for us. It's so beautiful. I believe this is Ash Lizzle's favorite card, and I could see that. I can see why this is when you can get this card going. I can imagine Fumulus would really love this card as well. And the reason is because the amount of sacrifice that is happening. So you're sacrificing to other creatures, whether it's those tokens that you're making in general, or your non-tokens, that's going to be fine. If it's a non-token, you have Fumulus on the battlefield, you're going to make more insect tokens. And Additionally, any number of target players will each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. Once again, getting into that, not only are we going to be making mites through the sacrifice of our creatures, our opponents will be sacrificing as well. And we're going to be and hopefully non-tokens, at least we'll get a couple, right? Like hopefully like they won't, be too token heavy. Maybe one of our opponents will be, but hopefully not all of them. But regardless, they'll have to sacrifice a creature, hopefully a non-token, so we can make more insect tokens that fly. And then we'll add 2 and draw a card. So some really nice gasoline for us. Really kind of makes sense to have the priest. Now, this this card was suggested, and you know what happened, guys, is that someone was like recommending because we had Fumulus go into our 99 for our Sorin the Necromancer deck, and we were really hinging on our removal to be sacrificed, and a lot of people had some nice recommendations. And Mirkwood Bats was one of them, and I was like, okay, like, yeah, I've heard that card. I heard it's pretty gross. But here it's really gross. It has to be a really good avenue for Fumulus because you're just going to be creating tokens, and then you're going to be sacrificing them, of course. You're going to be sacrificing those creatures. Also, this works with your treasures too. So like our Revs is definitely be one. Our Deadly Dispute, Black Market Connections, even our Pitiless Plunderer are going to love us creating treasures. That's creating a token and then sacrificing it. It's like, basically comes into a mayhem devil, so to speak, but it's in each clause, so it gets even more value because they're going to be sacrificing, and they're going to be losing a life for each time you create or sacrifice a token. So a really nasty guy there. That kind of just made the top look at, Fumulus as a card that's going to be really nasty. We're going to have a lot of ways to make tokens, not just treasures, but just creature tokens. And we're going to be able to have lots of ways to kill them off. So here's another beautiful card that just like kind of, and wow, what a beautiful card it is here. It looks so good on the camera too. Bitterblossom is just one of those fantastic ones where it's going to be repeatable value of tokens, and that's going to be very nice for you. Of course, you'll lose a life, but, just that repeatable value, over turns, it's just really nice. And they fly, so that's kind of cool too. Orcish Beamasters, this is just another one that's going to be creating those tokens for you. It's going to be pinging, which is really nice. You can grow that token, you could sacrifice it, and just, as your opponents draw extra cards, you're going to be making more tokens. So it's just a really nasty card in general for us, and really, obviously, one of the bane of existence for like our green decks that love to play Birds of Paradise and all those other little mana dorks. They're just toasted. They really are. Isn't that appropriate flavor too, to like have these like orcs just be like after the halflings, and the little elves? It's just so cool. Sir Conrad the Grim. Okay, so now we're kind of getting into our combo pieces, for instance. And this is, sorry about the shaking. I keep bumping this stand. Let me move over a little bit. All right, hopefully that will help. Okay. Yeah, I feel like I have to be careful about breathing on this thing now. Let's see if I can just... A little shaky, hold on. Okay. All right. Much better. Okay, so here's Sir Conrad the Grim, and this one is going to kind of act like a blood artist in a way. It's also just going to love to see things like milled into the graveyard too, which is really interesting. So whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, so like for instance being exiled, I suppose, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. Yeah, it's really nasty. And then 1 in a black. Each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard, so it also like self-fulfills that, milling of a card, and hopefully some creatures get in there, right? So very interesting card in general. This one is going to be like one of our high upside cards. We could play Blood Artists and such. I kind of want to try some high upside cards, for instance, like some nice legendaries like Sir Conrad and Ayara, because I just like the devotion that you get from these things, especially Ayara. That 3 black can really come in handy, especially in the beginning game. And if you're lucky enough to get a hold of a Nykthos, then you're going to be really in the money. And Ayara also just kind of enables some nice sacrifice synergy because, you know, we can sacrifice another black creature to draw a card, which is nice. In addition, when Ayara, First of Locthwain, or another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So it just has to be a black creature. That would be the verbiage for that. So some tokens are even considered black. You just have to kind of read like what kind of tokens like you're creating in general. Let's see what Fumulus says. Yeah, the Fumulus token is a black insect token, so it would count, which is cool. It is a black card. So that's just some nice synergy right there. And some of the combos that kind of enable itself is like the Gravecrawler combo. It's very simple, right? So for instance, you have like a Pitiless Plunder that says whenever another creature you control dies, create a treasure token. So we're going to have lots of things dying. This is just going to like replenish our treasures when it dies, for instance. So the card in question is the Gravecrawler here. You may cast Gravecrawler from your graveyard as long as you control a zombie. So the only thing we need is a like sacrifice outlet like a Viscera Seer. In addition, we would just need another zombie on the battlefield, a Pinger, and a Pitiless Plunderer. Basically just ways to like kind of replenish our mana to recast the Gravecrawler over and over again until our opponents are drained and have 0 life. So that's kind of a nice one there. So this would be like kind of meeting the criteria of the zombies. So we definitely have a lot of zombies in the deck, and they all like they have a purpose, right? They're just not there just like, hey, I'm a zombie, you know, like I'm here, I'm dead. No, there's definitely a purpose for this, and a Putrid Imp is like one of those exceptional ones. I would say this is kind of like Greasefang meets Sauron. That's kind of what this deck is it's basically has all the right components, right? Where you want to see things go into your graveyard, for instance. You want to recur things and resurrect them, and it's just a really nice mono black package. So you have like, for instance, a card like Putrid Imp. This is always a nice one because you can always like, for instance, put a Valgaboth into your graveyard, and you can have a turn 2 Valgaboth with Reanimate. I mean, that's you're like kind of living your best life. I mean, it's not really, it's just a hot start. You know, those are the hot starts you kind of look for. So there's that. So there's the aforementioned Valgaboth. Of course, that's kind of like, you know, how we're gonna get into the juice, because we definitely want to build our graveyard. We're gonna have lots of things dying. We want to recur them. We want to get them back, or we would just want to have creatures that are just so strong that when we resurrect them, they give us just a lot of value, and it's hard for the opponents to keep up with us at that point. So Valgaboth is that like preeminent like reanimation target. It's a 9/9 life linker, which is just a very good swing of life total and damage at the same time. And of course, as our opponents have cards that go to the graveyard, Valgaboth will eat those basically, and then we can start paying life to cast those things. We don't have to even pay their mana cost. It's beautiful. One of the cards that really goes off, and we don't have that in this card, is like a Mesmeric Orb. I didn't think like we needed to really juice up our graveyard. I think we're very selective, and we have some nice combos. We're not all in on the graveyard. We're just very appropriately there. So, but that would be very cool. I don't know if you've seen that before, but for instance, like a Mesmeric Orb just eats these things up, like for all your opponents. It just goes under Valgaboth. Valgaboth is on the battlefield. And a Mesmeric Orb, of course, just mills cards into people's graveyards based on the amount of tapped permanents they have, and they untap during their opponent their turn. So, okay, so here, of course, is the Crypt of Agadeem. And this is the one that's going to love to see creature cards in our graveyard, for instance. And it will enter the battlefield tap, so be it. Add black to your mana pool, and as a generic tap, and then 2 in a tap, add black to your mana pool for each black creature card in your graveyard. Just another way to kind of net some mana for appropriate. So we're definitely in our graveyard right now, featuring all the graveyard cards and the lands that go with it. Takanuma, look at guys. I'm just going to move it up just a little. But I got so lucky the other day, and I feel like it's kind of nice when you're coming home from work, or, you know, coming back from the gym, for instance, and it's just been like, you know, the weekly grind of work, right? And picking up some Kamigawa collector boosters and just popping one and just getting one of these is just like, thank you so much. because it's just like, it's just nice. They really did a really good job on these lands, and they're nice. They're just good functioning cards. This channel land, for instance, is going to see our legendaries. We could just play it untapped and it will tap for black. Otherwise, we can just channel this thing and mill some cards, and then we can just return a creature or planeswalk card from our graveyard to our hand, so we get some gas. It's just so multifaceted. It's such a good, good functional card, and we got it. We got it in the nice full art frame, so that's beautiful. Reanimate obviously is a very pen-in card, right? For your 99 for black, just kind of easy money. Put stuff in your graveyard, reanimate from your opponent's graveyard or your own. So pretty easy stuff right there. You'll lose life, of course, to its converted mana cost. Animate Dead is a very appropriately costed alternative to reanimate. It will stick on the battlefield, which is nice for your Nykthos, which is very interesting. It will build your devotion, which is very cool for even your Gray Merchant of Asphodel. And then when you play this, you will return a target card in any graveyard once again, guys. Any graveyard for the Animate Dead. It will come into the battlefield with a -1, -0. If it leaves play, bury the creature. Fantastic. Agadeem's Awakening. Just another one. Just another great reanimation spell. Can also just be a land. You can play 3 life for this. You can play it tapped and not lose any life. So just wow, thanks. Thank you for that, mono black. Incarnation Technique has to be kind of one of the more busto cards, I'd say. Just the fact that it just does all those things that you want it to do, like build your graveyard. And then you can just have two creatures returning to your battlefield. Your opponent will get a copy too, because we will be demonstrating this. So we're going to get all the mills. We're going to get all the creatures coming back. It's just a good deal for us. Coiling Rebirth. This is a newer one from the Bloombarrow set, and this one is really nice. I'm imagining a Coiling Rebirth, for instance, on our Gray Merchants of Asphodels, on our Massacre Worms. It's going to be those higher value targets. Even a Mirkwood Bats would be a very good target for our Coiling Rebirth, and probably a really nasty one, actually, because they will create a token in that manner. And that token will be a 1/1, so you just have to gift a card. Opponent will draw a card, and then we can return a creature card and copy it and have that copy be a 1/1 token. So really good with those static abilities or those enter the battlefield cards. For instance, we also have what's it called, the other Nazgul. I don't know. It's a 6/6 flying thing, and we'll get to that. But it's a Archon. Yeah, the Archon of Cruelty, of course. So yeah, we have that as well in this deck, and that would be a great target, a really great enter the battlefield with opponents to be sacrificing things. It's just going to be wonderful. All right, so here's some of the ways that we build the graveyard, and it's very important to kind of build our graveyard as much as possible. And this is also a great target for our Urza's Saga. That's why I like to run the Shriekhorn, is because, for instance, if we draw into our Soul Ring or if we draw into our Shriekhorn, we can still have a nice hit off of our Urza's Saga. We can still find a Soul Ring, for instance, or we can go find a Shriekhorn. And this one is just a nice one. It's just basically, it does it at a great rate. I'm not really sure any other card does a rate as fast as Shriekhorn or efficiently as Shriekhorn. The point is to get value from it. Of course, we have Deadly Dispute to sacrifice to it. We can also have our Braids sacrifice this thing as well. So there is ways to kind of get rid of it and get value, even if it exhausts its millings that it does, which is, it could do it at 3 instances of 2 cards each time into our graveyard. So it's very cool. Entomb, of course, and Unmarked Grave. These are kind of just hand in hand, and obviously Entomb is superior because it's an instant. You can just go ahead and put any card from your library into your graveyard, which is amazing. Really good for our reanimation spells. Similarly, Unmarked Grave can do that as well, where we're just entombing things. And yeah, we love to do that because we get lots of value out of our graveyard. Here's Stitcher's Supplier, and this is that nice Zombo, also a zombie. They will just mill cards right when it comes onto the battlefield, so it's a nice one for us. good to sacrifice too. Additionally, Undead Butler will do a similar role where it's just milling cards. When it dies, we can also get some value and return a creature card to our hand, from the graveyard to their hand. Altar of Dementia is just a really nice sacrifice. So we just are always looking for cards for Fumulus that say sacrifice. So sacrifice is kind of that keyword where we're even sacrificing, like for instance, our Undead Butlers, and we're getting value from it. And we're milling more cards. It's just kind of a nice one for us. We like that one a lot. Timuret Calls the Dead is also a very efficient way to go ahead and building the graveyard. In addition to that, it'll create 2/2 zombies as well, and we do like the token production. Of course, that fills in all the roles that we've been kind of doing, and very great for that synergy for zombies that we have. Here's the Angel of Suffering. This was also a recommendation, and I did try it out, and it was fantastic. It's just it's so interesting, like how basically just damage that's dealt to you. It just turns into milled cards. So. There's also ways to sacrifice this, and that was the point that one of our friends was making on the channel, that you want to like have like a Viscera Seer around, maybe like a Phyrexian Tower, just in case, like, you know, all of a sudden like you're going to get swung on and perhaps maybe you need to get rid of the Angel of Suffering, or you're just going to, you know, die or perish, but maybe you would perish anyways. So there might be some circumstances where, you know, you might want to sacrifice the Angel of Suffering. I'm not sure. Maybe if we really got through our deck, like maybe if this was sticking around for a while and then it was like, okay, we can take some damage, but, you know, if we leave this on the battlefield, we're going to be milled out. So keep that in mind. It does mill a lot of cards, though, which is really cool and really good with Sir Conrad, you can imagine. It's going to be interesting, man. Interesting stuff going on there, you know. Here's our sacrifice. So these are just like the cards that you're just going to like to see. For our Fumulus, we want everybody to sacrifice at once, right? And this one's really good. It, you know, has that verbiage of each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature, so we can make sure that they sacrifice that non-token in circumstances, which is really nice and triggers our Fumulus. Otherwise, we have a lot of options for Sheoldred's Edict, so that's nice. Bloodghast got in here. I think I am still in some of these got, you know, kind of in the zone, but Bloodghast is just one of those things you can continually sacrifice, right? That's just a nice one where you're not sad about like sacrificing it and playing a land and it comes right back out. It's just a sweet card for this deck in general. I just love that. And we'll find the Bloodghast because we're going to be milling some cards, right? So here's your Sheoldred. And this one is just the sacrifice monster. And then once again, it has to be a non-token for Sheoldred. So that kind of fits in with the Fumulus vibes. Of course, the flip side is is when we're getting into the, you know, destroying aspect on Chapter 1, where we're destroying a target creature or planeswalker. Chapter 2, all of our opponents are discarding 3 cards. And then on Chapter 3, we're returning all creatures and graveyards to the battlefield, the Rise of the Dark Realms. Sheoldred is hard to get off in an EDH game into that Chapter 3 because, you know, your opponents like are going to have some removal for your enchantments at that time probably. But overall, just the value itself and the option of doing that and kind of giving value off the Chapter 1 is still very intriguing. This also reminds me that a card that's probably really good here is like your Liliana Dreadhorde Knight Planeswalker. That's probably definitely fits in. I just don't have that card, so this is kind of what you see. This is what you get kind of deal. But that is definitely a card I would recommend because it sacrifices. Everyone has to sacrifice 2 creatures, for instance, and you start drawing cards from it as well. But overall, we have a very tight creature synergy right here, so we're not going to be too mad about it. So here's the Archon of Cruelty, and this is the 6/6 that when it enters the battlefield, target opponent sacrifices a creature. It's not necessarily has to be a non-token, but hopefully we can target an opponent that does have a non-token to sacrifice, and we want it dead. Additionally, you get that value of them discarding a card, losing 3 life, you draw a card and gain 3 life. And it just has to attack too. So a great Coiling Rebirth target, for instance, having 2 Archons on the battlefield is better than 1, especially getting double the triggers seems like a good deal. Reassembling Skeleton, this was kind of the inspiration from what we got from just playing against the Fumulus player on Brawl, and I like running into Fumulus. I feel it's a really good deck, and I feel like reassembling Skeleton is a great option because this is a non-token, right? So if you can continually sacrifice this thing, that's just wonderful. It's, it's when you return it to the battlefield, it's still that, it's not a token, it's just the card itself. So that's really nice. It's really good fodder for us, especially to make our more insect tokens. Soul Shatter is just a really good sacrifice card. Once again, opponents have to sacrifice a creature or planeswalker with the highest converted mana cost, so that's a nice one as well. Here's Woestrider, and Woestrider is just a nice thing that can just like freely sacrifice your things, which is nice. It's just nice to have one of those. There's a scry involved. You can get this from your graveyard as well, which is really nice. So I'm a big fan of the Woestrider. It creates a token. It's just a really strong card, right, for this deck. Surely Braids Arisen Nightmare has to be top here. And the fact that you have so much selection to sacrifice, you can sacrifice an artifact, for instance, and maybe your opponents can't do that. And now you're going to start drawing a bunch of cards. So that's kind of fun, like, sacrificing a Shriekhorn that doesn't do anything anymore. That sounds great to me. Or, for instance, let's sacrifice a creature, and now if our opponents don't, they lose 2 life and we draw. And that's a lot of opponents, we're going to get some nice value off of Braids. It's a fantastic card in Commander. These are just cards that apply so well. They just translate so well to a multiplayer format. So, you have that definitely a lot of selection there, and Braids can definitely get that job done for us. And it sacrifices, let's be honest. So, it's a very interesting card. Accursed Marauder. Accursed Marauder enters the battlefield. Each player sacrifices a non-token creature. Very good. Yes, Accursed Marauder, thank you. And it's so appropriately priced. Obviously, like a Nadu killer. Honestly, why did they ban that card? I wonder. But seriously, maybe Mono Black had a chance against Nadu. You must sacrifice it. It must die. Yeah, sacrifice is good. Here's Deadly Dispute. And yeah, that one's just a nice one that will create a treasure token, which is nice. It'll get us a little gas up, instant speed, some nice like little, hey, what are they gonna do with that mana? I don't know. But then we're gonna sacrifice something and draw some cards. It's beautiful. Shambling Ghast. Ooh, something else that loves to die. Yeah, we could sacrifice this Shambling Ghast. We can create some treasures. We can really start juicing up real fast, like get really ahead, and our Fumulus will love all that. Definitely. We'll love everything, especially like a Fumulus Mirkwood Bats. It's going to be kind of nasty. Here's Yogg, the Yoggster. So Yogg just loves to sacrifice things as well, then just draw cards from it. Of course, we can proliferate as well in some circumstances for whatever reason. So there's that. Plaguecrafter is just like that generic, I'm coming onto the battlefield and you must sacrifice. So they either sacrifice a creature or a planeswalker, and each player who can't discards a card. Fantastic. So you always get some value from a Plaguecrafter. Here's Turgid, and Turgid likes to see things sacrificed. So I said, hey, let's put a Turgid in here. So whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Fantastic. So they're gonna have to, they're gonna have to sacrifice some stuff, and we're gonna get it back. So it's gonna be a non-token. So we gotta focus in on that. Also has the backside, of course. It can be that it's like a drainer. I think you pay 4 mana to untap it, but you tap it for opponent to lose 3 life, and you gain 3 life. I believe that's how it goes. This is how this kind of comes to be, is that you kind of look through your decks and you're like, wow, this works here for sacrifice, and this works well in Greasefang. That's what I'm trying to say. It's kind of like a Greasefang deck. It kind of like is a Greasefang and a Sauron Necromancer deck put into one. So this one's going to love to have things sacrifice. And then the players will have to sacrifice creatures as well. We're just hoping they're non-tokens for Fumulus, and so we can grow our Fumulus insect army. So that would be just wonderful. And we're just going to be able to continually sacrifice things and get value from cards like Wrinkle. Here is another sacrifice aficionado, basically. would be another great card to get into is Razaketh, the Foul-Blooded. 5, 3 black, and flying trample, 8, pay 2 life. Sacrifice another creature, search your library for a card, and put that card into your hand. Then shuffle your library. So if all else fails, we'll be able to start sacrificing things. And with the Razaketh, we're going to still get value from our Fumulus. We're going to be able to tutor up some cards. It's going to be great, and we're going to reanimate this thing. That's how we're going to get to it, Here's High Market. This is just that beautiful option to just have something sacrificed from a land. It's beautiful. If we need to have something sacrificed, this would do it for us, and it's on a land, so it's just wonderful. It's just does all those things. It's just like for a Greasevein deck. It's perfect. Even better is the Phyrexian Tower, because you're going to actually net some mana when you sacrifice a creature for this. Otherwise, it just creates generic mana, or actually it creates colorless. So that's really cool as well. Here's some more just sacrifice, like things that kind of get us value from sacrificing. So a Diabolical Intent is nice because we get to sacrifice a creature, search your library for a card, put that card in your hand, just like a nice tutor for us. It meets the function of sacrificing. And in addition, these are cards that are just nice value cards. We just like to, they don't have anything in particular to sacrifice. Just the Massacre Worm is just going to be one of those things that is just really great value. And we'd love to see it reanimate. We'd love to see a Coiling Rebirth on a Massacre Worm. It just seems like a great sweeper for us, and a good way to kind of shore up some games for us as well. Just always looming the Massacre Worm. Just always ready to shred some opponents. It really is a nice little foundation foil there. Here's Fel the Profane. So we're kind of in a removal suite. And this is a nice land that you can just play for untap for 3 life, or just tap for not lose any life. And then it also has for 4 the option to destroy target creature or planeswalker at instant speed, which is nice. Blood on the Snow. Similarly, it's just a nice sweeper that we can kind of return a creature. Definitely an equalizer, and it can definitely change the board states real fast. And of course, if you get a creature back, you're just a step ahead, right? Hagra Mauling, similar to Fel the Profane. This one came before Fel, and it will just hit a target creature. It will cost 1 less to cast if an opponent controls no basic lands. So that's interesting. But that will destroy a target creature. It doesn't have the option to be played untapped by paying 3 life. It must come in tapped. Here's Toxic D, and of course this just slots into our 99, and it is the greatest black card. It has to be. It gets around cards that block enter the battlefield triggers, like for instance, the Massacre Worm. It just says, hey, I'm a sorcery, and yet things are dead. So that's the great thing about Toxic Deluge. You pay some life into this, and you just sweep the board. Here's a little rampy. So we got Urza Saga. This is a nice form of ramp for us. Overall, finds that Soul Ring for us. It's just, or our Shriekhorn. It's just a nice tutor card in general. Cabal Stronghold, we are definitely playing enough basic swamps. We definitely have a lot of decent multi-phase cards, but not too many. So I think Cabal Stronghold here is, a good slot in. You could, go for those Urborg Cabal coffers. You can, if you have ways to fetch that up, and you wanted to kind of really go for that, you could. But I'm just pretty content with the Cabal Stronghold, and just maybe getting lucky and having a couple basic swamps out more than the allotted cost of this, and netting some mana would be nice. Otherwise, you're just going to create colorless with it. No penalties, doesn't come in tapped. Arcane Signet, there's a Dan Frazier art. Arcane Signet's beautiful. It's going to give us a little bit of ramp in the early game, just a little touch, right? We have the altar here. We have lots of things to sacrifice. Definitely can kind of double up on this, where you sacrifice for instance a non-token with Fumulus on the battlefield, one of your non-tokens, maybe a Stitcher Supplier, and then all of a sudden you're creating another insect token, and then maybe you want to sack that and maybe get into something nastier. Maybe you want to get into your Bolas Citadel a little sooner. There's a lot of options to go with Ashnod's Altar. It kind of gives you that 2 extra colorless mana pool for sacrificing a creature, and we want to sacrifice. We want to definitely get into that action. So this is like a top card for Fumulus. Jet Medallion just to reduce all our black spells by 1. Just a nice one for us. And then we just have our swamps. And there they are. There's just some snow-covered swamps here. So that is the Fumulus deck, and I hope you enjoyed it. I do want to kind of talk about the giveaway a little bit here. So let me get those cards ready. We're going to go through a little stretch here and kind of look at all the beautiful Fumulus cards. And hopefully I included some of the cards that you would definitely fit in. So that's kind of like what I kind of enjoy about this, is kind of seeing your reaction to it and kind of seeing maybe what cards that you're playing in here. So here's all the goodies. Yeah, it's definitely got like a lot of, resurrection. It feels like a pretty tight list. I feel like I've seen some nice deck techs and they have some really nice features. So I'm still going to explore. This is like a very like surface level. Like I saw my Greasevein deck and my Sauron deck and I saw Fumulus, and it seemed like the Sauron deck was already going into like a Fumulus direction. So I just was like, okay, let's see how like far we can take this with the cards that I have available. And honestly, the deck looks great. Like I feel like this is kind of, I really couldn't ask for more. Like you have like an infinite combo here. It's got like it can end the game. Like it can be explosive. I feel it has some nice ways to like kind of cheat in some really nasty things. So overall, like I'm very satisfied. I feel like it's got a nice presence too. I feel like you can kind of grind it out with this deck as well. So I feel it's kind of touching on all of those buttons. So overall, I really dug it. And let's go over the kind of giveaway. This will be for the 300 subscribers. And Vaughn is in the lead so far. Good job, Vaughn. So yeah, you just have to be a subscriber and comment on the videos. And then once we hit the 300, I'll just put all the names that have commented and I'll just, and how many times you've done it, like for a video, for instance, once a video, and then I'll just send you these cards. And so this is Ophelia. I don't know what the price is at this. I don't know if it's tanked or not. I'll check the price. If it's tanked, I'll probably like put in some more stuff. But for instance, this is a nice Aurelia from the March of the Machine. I thought that would be very appropriate. It's got the really nice art. So you definitely wouldn't hate like having that in your 99 for your art. Ketria Triumph, Zagoth Triumph, these kind of never go out of style. They're always good for like your 4-colored and 5-colored decks. A Lotus Cobra because Lotus Cobra is cool. Frontline Heroism because I love this card, and I think you will too. This is basically if you did not know, Mire is actually basically the inspiration for our channel name. So Blake, the Scholar of Magic, Mire, the Scholar of Antiquity. She's my favorite card, and it's no doubt. And now, I don't know about if you all know this, but Aether Drift came out with a lot of Gruul vehicles. It was almost a blessing because I was like, I really wanted to build Mech Titan Core for Mire, but there was just not enough vehicles. Like you had Sky Sovereign and Esca's Chariot. So I'm wondering now if I can actually build a Mech Titan Core deck with Mire as the helm. So maybe someone out there is like working for Wizards, like, oh, build some Gruul vehicles. Yes, Wizards, please build more Gruul vehicles that are good. And perhaps ones that actually like can resurrect other vehicles from the graveyard. That would be even better. So I'll give you this nice stained glass Mire. You'll get this nice Surge Foil Doors of Durn, Avora here. And you can even put in a request for a card. I probably have it, and I'll probably add it for every time, we get 10 subscribers up to the 300. So put a card down, preferably under $20. I'd appreciate that. And we'll try to slot it in there, try to slot in some sweet cards. Yeah, that's about it. That is the video. So I hope you all have a great day and you made it to the end, and I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.